What happens when one of Britain's most beloved actors walks onto a morning talk show expecting respect and walks off in disgust? In just 27 seconds of cutting remarks, Lorraine Kelly destroys any chance of a civil conversation and triggers one of the most shocking exits in television history. McKellen settles into the bright orange sofa, the studio lights warming his face as the audience applauds. He's here to discuss his latest theater production, a passion project he's been working on for months. Lorraine Kelly sits across from him, flanked by her regular panelists, Rav Wilding and Christine Lampard. The energy feels strange from the start, something unspoken hanging in the air. "So, Ian," Lorraine begins, not with a welcome, not with congratulations, but with an edge in her voice. "You're doing another play. How lovely for you. Must be nice to keep yourself busy at your age." The audience shifts uncomfortably. Ian's smile falters just slightly, but he maintains his composure. "Well, acting is what I've dedicated my life to. Age has never been a barrier to doing what I love." Lorraine leans back, exchanging a glance with Rav that doesn't go unnoticed. Of course. Though some might say there are younger actors who could use the opportunity. Don't you think it's time to, pass the torch?" Christine's eyes widen. Even she seems surprised by the hostility. Ian shifts in his seat, his legendary patience beginning to thin. "I don't believe art has an expiration date, Lorraine. Experience brings depth to performance." "Experience," Lorraine repeats, making the word sound like an insult. "Is that what we're calling it now? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you're just refusing to step aside for fresh talent. Bit selfish, isn't it?" The studio has gone quiet. The crew behind the cameras freeze. This isn't playful banter. This is an attack. Ian's jaw tightens, his hands clasping together on his lap. "I'm sorry, I don't quite understand what you're getting at." Rav jumps in, clearly emboldened by Lorraine's approach. "I think what Lorraine is trying to say is that maybe it's time for the older generation to recognize when they've had their moment. Theater needs new blood, new perspectives, not the same old faces doing the same old thing." Ian turns to face Rav directly, his voice measured but firm. "The same old thing? I've been performing Shakespeare, Pinter, Beckett for decades, because these works matter. Because they speak to the human condition across all ages. That's not clinging to relevance. That's honoring the craft." Lorraine laughs, actually laughs, a sharp sound that cuts through the tension. "Oh, Ian, always so serious, aren't you? Can't take a bit of honest feedback. That's the problem with your generation, you know. You think you're untouchable, above criticism. Honest feedback?" Ian's voice rises slightly, the first crack in his composure. "You've invited me here under the pretense of discussing my work, and instead you're suggesting I should retire, that I'm taking opportunities from others. That's not feedback, Lorraine. That's disrespect." Christine finally speaks up, her voice softer, attempting to mediate. "Ian, I think we all admire your body of work. Your contributions to theater and film are incredible. Maybe we can talk about the actual production you're involved in?" But Lorraine isn't having it. She waves Christine off with a dismissive hand. No, let's not shy away from the real conversation here. Ian, you've been doing this for what, 50 years? 60? At some point, don't you look at yourself and think, maybe I'm blocking someone else's dream? The accusation hangs in the air like poison. Ian's face has gone from patient to shocked to something harder now, something resolute. Blocking someone's dream. I've spent my entire career mentoring young actors. I've championed new voices, new writers. I've used whatever platform I have to lift others up. What have you done besides sit on this sofa and tear people down?" The audience gasps. It's a direct hit, and Lorraine's face flushes red. But instead of backing down, she doubles down, her voice turning icy. "How dare you? I've built this show from nothing. I've given a voice to hundreds of guests. Just because I'm asking you difficult questions doesn't mean I'm tearing you down. Maybe you're just too fragile to handle the truth. The truth? Ian stands now, his full presence commanding the studio. The truth is, you invited me here to humiliate me, to make yourself feel important by diminishing someone else. That's not journalism, Lorraine. That's cruelty. Rav tries to intervene, standing as well. Now hang on, Ian. You're being a bit dramatic. We're just having a discussion. Ian turns to him, his eyes blazing. A discussion requires good faith. It requires mutual respect. I've been in this industry long enough to know when I'm being set up, and I won't sit here and be your punching bag for ratings. Lorraine stands too now, pointing a finger at Ian. You're being ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. This is exactly the kind of diva behavior that proves my point. You can't handle anyone questioning you. You think you're above it all. I think I deserve basic courtesy, Ian replies, his voice deadly calm now. Something you clearly don't understand. You've made it clear what kind of show this is, what kind of host you are, and I want no part of it. Christine reaches out, trying to touch Ian's arm. Ian, please, let's just take a breath and start over. But Ian gently moves away from her touch, shaking his head. No, Christine, I appreciate your kindness, but I won't stay where I'm not respected. Some lines shouldn't be crossed, and Lorraine has crossed every single one. Lorraine's voice turns shrill, desperate to regain control. So that's it? You're just going to storm off like a child? This is live television, Ian. You can't just leave. Ian looks directly into the camera, speaking to the viewers at home rather than to Lorraine. I came here in good faith to share my love of theater with people who might be interested. Instead, I've been met with ageism, with hostility, with calculated disrespect. I won't validate this behavior by staying. He begins to remove his microphone, his movements deliberate and calm. Lorraine moves around the coffee table, getting closer to him. You're making a huge mistake. Do you know how many people would love to be on this show? How privileged you are to be here? Ian pauses, the microphone in his hand, and looks at her with something like pity. Privileged? You've just spent 15 minutes telling me I'm too old, too irrelevant, too selfish. And now you want to talk about privilege? The privilege was supposed to be yours, Lorraine. The privilege of having a meaningful conversation with someone who's dedicated their life to their art. But you've squandered it. Rav steps forward, his tone aggressive. This is unbelievable. You come on our show, you insult our host, and now you're playing the victim? Ian turns to face him fully. I've insulted no one until I was insulted first. I've responded to aggression with honesty. If you want to call that playing the victim, that says more about you than it does about me. Lorraine's voice cracks slightly, anger mixing with something that might be panic. Fine, leave then. Walk off. Show everyone watching what kind of person you really are. A quitter. Someone who can't handle a challenging interview. Ian sets the microphone down on the coffee table with careful precision. A challenging interview asks difficult questions about work, about process, about choices. It doesn't attack someone's right to exist in their profession. It doesn't suggest they're stealing opportunities from others simply by continuing to work. You haven't challenged me, Lorraine. You've attempted to demean me. There's a difference. Christine is on her feet now, looking between Ian and Lorraine. Please, both of you. This has gotten out of hand. Ian, if you feel we've been unfair, we can address that. Lorraine, maybe we could approach this differently. But Lorraine isn't listening. Her face is twisted with rage and embarrassment. Address what? That he can't handle criticism. That he thinks he's too important for this show. Let him go, Christine. We don't need him. You're absolutely right, Ian says quietly. You don't need me, but I needed you to be better than this. I needed you to remember that behind every guest is a human being who deserves dignity. You've forgotten that, if you ever knew it at all. He begins walking toward the studio exit, his posture straight, his dignity intact despite everything. Lorraine calls after him, her voice echoing through the studio. "This is career suicide, Ian. Do you hear me? Walking off my show like this. It'll follow you." Ian stops, turns back one last time. "My career has survived far worse than a petty talk show host with a grudge. I've faced real adversity, real challenges. This?" He gestures around the studio. "This is just sad." Rav moves as if to block his path. "You can't just leave. We're live. Think about the crew, the production." Ian looks at him with barely concealed contempt. "The crew has been nothing but professional, unlike their host. I'm sure they'll manage just fine without me. They've probably had to clean up plenty of her messes before." Lorraine screams now, actually screams. "Get out. Just get out. You pompous, arrogant, washed up has-been. Get out of my studio." The words hang in the air, shocking in their venom. The crew has stopped even pretending to work. The cameras are still rolling, capturing every moment of the meltdown. Ian doesn't flinch, doesn't respond with anger. Instead, he simply nods, as if Lorraine has finally revealed her true self. "Thank you for making this easy," he says softly. "I was worried I might feel guilty about leaving. But you've shown everyone exactly who you are. I don't need to say another word." He turns and walks toward the exit. Christine follows a few steps behind, her voice pleading. "Ian, wait. Please. This isn't right. You shouldn't leave like this." Ian pauses at the studio door, looking back at Christine with warmth. "You're kind, Christine. That's rare in this business. Don't let this place take that from you. Don't let her poison who you are." Lorraine is still shouting, her voice breaking. "You think you're better than me? You think you're some kind of hero? You're nothing. Nothing but an old man who can't accept that his time has passed." Ian doesn't respond to her. He looks instead at the audience, at the people sitting in uncomfortable silence. "I'm sorry you had to witness this. You came here expecting entertainment, maybe inspiration. Instead, you've seen something ugly. That's not your fault. Remember that kindness costs nothing. Remember that how we treat others, especially when we have power over them, defines who we are." With that, he pushes through the studio door and disappears. The sound of the door closing echoes through the space. For a moment, nobody moves. Nobody speaks. The silence is deafening. Lorraine stands in the middle of the studio, breathing heavily, her makeup running slightly from the exertion and emotion. She looks at the cameras, at her remaining panelists, at the frozen crew. "Well," she says, her voice shaking, "that was dramatic." Rav tries to salvage something. Anything. Shall we cut to commercial?" But it's too late. The damage is done. The entire confrontation has played out live, unfiltered, raw. Christine sits back down on the sofa, her head in her hands. The audience sits in stunned silence, many looking at their phones, already spreading the news of what they've just witnessed. Lorraine walks back to her chair, sitting down heavily. She tries to compose herself, to find the professional veneer she's worn for years. "Right then, let's move on to our next segment, shall we? We have a lovely cooking demonstration coming up." But her voice wavers. Her hands shake as she shuffles the papers on her lap. Rav sits beside her, looking shell-shocked. Christine hasn't moved, still processing what's happened. A producer's voice comes through the speakers, tinny and distant. "We need to go to break. Now." Lorraine nods, looking directly into the camera. "We'll be right back after these messages. Don't go anywhere." The moment the cameras cut, she collapses back into the sofa, her face crumpling. "What just happened?" she whispers. "What did I just do?" Rav doesn't answer. Christine looks at her with something that might be disappointment or might be pity. The studio crew begins moving again, but their movements are mechanical. Shocked. He walked off, Lorraine says, as if saying it aloud will make it make sense. He actually walked off my show. You told him to leave, Christine says quietly. You called him a has-been. You screamed at him to get out. Lorraine's head snaps up. He insulted me first. He said I'd tear people down. Because you were tearing him down, Christine replies, her voice firm now. From the moment he sat down, you attacked him. His age, his career, his right to work. What did you expect him to do? Sit there and take it? Rav tries to defend Lorraine. We were just asking tough questions. That's our job. Christine turns to him, her eyes hard. Tough questions about what? His work? His process? No. You questioned his right to exist in his profession. You suggested he was stealing from younger actors. That's not tough journalism, Rav. That's just mean. Lorraine stands abruptly. I don't have to listen to this. Not from you. Not from anyone. This is my show. My name is on it. And if Ian McKellen can't handle a little heat, that's his problem, not mine. She storms off toward her dressing room, leaving Rav and Christine alone on the set. The crew is packing up equipment, preparing for the break to end. But everyone knows that when they come back, everything will be different. The show will go on, but something fundamental has broken. Christine looks at where Ian stood just minutes ago, at the microphone he carefully placed on the table. He was right, she says softly, about all of it. Rav opens his mouth to argue, but closes it again. Because deep down, he knows she's right too. They all know. The audience knows. The viewers at home know. And soon, everyone will know. Not because of anything Ian McKellen did, but because of what Lorraine Kelly revealed about herself in those heated moments. The makeup artist approaches Christine, ready to touch up her face before the cameras roll again. Are you okay? She asks gently. Christine nods, though her eyes are wet. I will be. But I don't think this show will. In the control room, the director sits with his head in his hands. The producers are on their phones, already dealing with the fallout. The footage is everywhere already, spreading across social media like wildfire. Clips of Lorraine's attacks, of Ian's dignified responses, of his final exit. The internet is ablaze with commentary, with outrage, with support for Ian. Back in the studio, the countdown begins. 10 seconds until they're live again. Lorraine returns, her makeup hastily repaired, her expression set in a mask of professionalism. She sits, arranges her papers, and prepares to continue as if nothing happened. And we're live in 3, 2, 1. The red light comes on. Lorraine smiles at the camera, that familiar warm smile that's made her a household name. Welcome back. Now, we have a wonderful guest who's going to show us how to make the perfect Sunday roast. She's going to pretend it never happened, going to try to move past it as if those 15 minutes of cruelty and confrontation were just a blip, an aberration, something that can be smoothed over and forgotten. But in the front row of the audience, a woman whispers to her friend, "Did you get that on your phone?" "Every second," her friend replies. "Already posted it." And in that moment, in that simple exchange, Lorraine Kelly's fate is sealed. Because while she might want to pretend nothing happened, the world won't let her forget. The footage will live forever, a permanent record of the moment a respected actor chose his dignity over her disrespect. The cooking segment continues. The chef demonstrates how to season a roast. Lorraine nods and smiles and asks questions about herbs and timing. But her eyes keep darting to the studio door, to the empty space where Ian McKellen sat, to the microphone he left behind like evidence at a crime scene. Christine does her best to engage with the segment, to bring some normalcy back to the show. But there's a distance in her manner now, a guardedness that wasn't there before. She's seen behind the curtain, seen the ugliness that lurks beneath the bright lights and cheerful banter, and she can't unsee it. Rav is quieter than usual, his earlier bravado gone. He makes a few comments about the food, laughs at the chef's jokes, but there's no energy behind it. He's thinking about what he said, about how he jumped in to support Lorraine's attacks, about how it looked to everyone watching. The segment ends. They go to another break. Lorraine stands immediately, walking off set without a word to anyone. Christine and Rav exchange glances. "That was a disaster," Rav says. "It was worse than a disaster," Christine replies. "It was a revelation. We all just learned something about who we work with, about what this show really is." "Maybe it was just a bad day," Rav suggests weakly. "Everyone has them." Christine shakes her head. "A bad day doesn't make you attack someone for their age. Doesn't make you question their right to work. Doesn't make you scream at them to get out. That wasn't a bad day, Rav. That was who she really is when someone doesn't play along with her agenda." A production assistant approaches them nervously. "They want you both in the green room. There's going to be a meeting after the show." Of course there is. Damage control, crisis management, trying to figure out how to spin this, how to minimize the fallout. But some things can't be spun. Some moments are too raw, too honest, too revealing to be explained away. The rest of the show passes in a blur. More segments, more guests, more forced smiles, and cheerful transitions. But underneath it all, there's a current of tension, of awareness that something has fundamentally changed. The crew knows it. The audience knows it. Even Lorraine, despite her attempts to carry on, must feel it. When the show finally ends, when the cameras stop rolling and the lights dim, Lorraine walks off set without acknowledging anyone. Christine watches her go, feeling something she's never felt before about her colleague. Pity, yes, but also disappointment. And underneath it all, a resolve to never let herself become what she's just witnessed. In his dressing room, Ian McKellen is collecting his things. His agent is on the phone, fielding calls from journalists, from other shows wanting his side of the story. But Ian isn't interested in revenge or vindication. He did what he needed to do. He stood up for his dignity. That's enough. He looks at himself in the mirror, at the face that's graced stages and screens for decades, at the lines that tell stories of a life fully lived, of roles inhabited, of emotions explored. And he smiles, because he knows something Lorraine Kelly has forgotten, or perhaps never learned. That true respect isn't demanded. It's earned, and it's given freely when someone proves themselves worthy of it. He takes one last look at the studio, at the place where he was disrespected, where he was attacked, where he chose his dignity over compliance. And then he walks out the door, into the daylight, into the rest of his life. A life where he'll continue to work, to create, to inspire. Not because Lorraine Kelly or anyone like her gives him permission, but because art doesn't retire. Passion doesn't have an expiration date, and talent doesn't apologize for existing. Behind him, in that studio, the fallout is just beginning. The meetings, the explanations, the attempts to control the narrative. But Ian McKellen is done with all of that. He said what needed to be said. He stood where he needed to stand. And now he's moving forward, leaving behind a studio full of people who will spend weeks, maybe months, dealing with the consequences of their host's cruelty. Because that's the thing about live television. It doesn't lie. It doesn't allow for do-overs or edited takes. It captures the truth in all its uncomfortable glory. And on Tonbis this day, the truth was that a legendary actor was disrespected, attacked, and driven from a studio, not because he did anything wrong, but because a host forgot the most basic rule of human interaction. Treat people with kindness, especially when you have the power to hurt them. Ian McKellen remembered that rule. He lived it, even in the face of hostility, and in doing so, He showed everyone watching what integrity looks like, what dignity means, what it is to be truly professional, even when everyone around you has forgotten how.